Hey, you awesome folks! Thanks for taking this journey of discovery with your guide, Keith Haney. You're listening to the Becoming Bridge Builders podcast, your favorite podcast for everything from racial reconciliation to education innovation, justice reform, and leading change in the 21st century. This podcast is for people who love to be challenged with difficult topics, but want practical solutions to solve these challenging issues. Becoming Bridge Builders makes change possible. Each week on the podcast, Keith invites innovative thought leaders to share how they are building bridges in their area of expertise. You will hear breakthrough ideas and concepts that are changing the world. He's featuring guests who are best-selling authors, leaders at Microsoft, entrepreneurs, leading educators, professors, lawyers, and so many more. Listen in to learn how you can be the bridge to the change you are seeking.
My guests today are Shay and Brea Davis. They are a dynamic husband and wife duo passionate about bridging the racial wealth gap through innovation, education, and legacy building. They have joined forces to empower families with the tools, knowledge, and confidence to build generational wealth and secure their futures. Shay Davis, Legacy Chief, is a visionary behind a unique approach to merging culture, technology, and finance. He brings history to life through wearable tech that tells the stories of cultural icons, while simultaneously providing access to financial tools that help individuals grow their wealth risk-free and tax-free. Shay's bold leadership reimagines how fashion and fintech can intersect to create impactful change for families and communities. Brea is a wealth strategist and leadership development coach with a decade of experience in strategic development. She brings a compassionate and insightful approach to helping families create customized legacy plans. Her deep understanding of financial empowerment and her commitment to closing the racial wealth gap drive her to educate others on how they can grow their money in ways they never thought possible. We welcome them to the podcast. Well, I'm so blessed to have you both on the podcast. I'm looking forward to this conversation. I always like bringing this kind of content to my audience at least a couple times a year because I think we live in a culture where so many people don't know how to generate wealth and take care of their families, their legacy concepts. So I'm looking forward to you guys sharing some of the things you do to help people do that. But before we get to the juice and meat of that, you got to get through the opening door of the question that every podcast guest has to answer to get to the deeper questions. And that is, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received? And you guys pick who goes first.
Shay's the talker, so I'll let him go first.
The best piece of advice you've ever received. And it feels like it alternates season over season.
Sure.
But I'm gonna go with it's darkest before the light. In times of struggle, if you will, you have to be mentally prepared, spiritually prepared, and you have to have the right people around you to keep pushing forward. So I think in this season of life, that's something that stays on my mind, given economic environment, political environment, and even this entrepreneur journey that me and my wife are on.
Sure, that's amazing. Good.
That's good. I would say for me, it's fail forward and fail fast. And that's something that I've always heard from coming from like a tech background, and you just got to pick the things that work. If they don't work, okay, learn from that and keep it pushing. And so that's something that's always stuck with me in a mantra. We certainly implement in our family for sure.
That's great. I love both of those. I'm always curious, as you think about your careers and your journey in life, who are some people that served as mentors for each of you?
My mom, for sure. She's definitely the backbone of our family. And the fact that she was determined to do multiple things, I call her multifaceted, is one of the things that I definitely attain or like try to be like mirror that. And then I would say my old boss from the corporate side, my last old boss, he was always looking to progress and to be able to allow us to, in my team, fail and move fast and make mistakes and challenge us. And so those are two, I guess, personal and then professional wise that have allowed me to really propel where we're at. What about you, Che?
I would say my dad for sure, as a mentor and just kind of leader. He always led by example. From my sports background in like college and high school, just always being there, always showing up, being in the trenches with you. And I think as we've pursued the kind of entrepreneur journey, I've always turned to historic figures for mentorship and guidance. And I found a lot of what I really liked. I've been like a huge fan of Malcolm X since I was like 5 years old, since I saw the Spike Lee movie. I thought Denzel Washington was Malcolm X. But a lot of that was built on self-reliance, pride, cultural pride, and just kind of knowing your why. And I found that in people like Malcolm and Fred Hampton. And I think that's kind of even what inspired the clothing line. People not knowing who those people are and what they stood for, and those values can transcend generations. So I think I always looked up to Malcolm and my dad growing up for sure.
It's always interesting. I look back at history, and sometimes people like Malcolm X, who people see as controversial, there's so much about what they believed and even the movements that they led that's just
Mm-hmm.
not told. And
Mm-hmm.
I've done some, research just recently. I'm like, I didn't even know that was part of that, because you only hear part of the story. And I'm,
Correct.
I'm always reminded of I can't think of the guy's name now. But he always said, This is the rest of the story." We only hear sometimes a snippet of someone's life, and we make a value judgment based on that one snippet without knowing the entire context of
Mm-hmm.
their life. So I appreciate that we get a chance to talk about people and dig deeper than just the surface stuff.
Correct. Absolutely. I agree.
I'm always curious when I have couples on. I don't have couples on my podcast often, so I'm really thankful for this. But tell me how you guys met and decided to join forces in this mission.
Ooh.
Wow. So we met at a library um, in 2006. And I believe I was in my senior year of high school. Che was in his freshman year of college, and I was doing what they call the Running Start program. And so I happened to attend one of the local colleges for classes. So we met in the library, and I just saw this guy. He was wearing this all white suit, and I was like, who is this guy coming in here wearing suits in a regular Tuesday? And so, anyways, we met there. I introduced myself just, as I was very sociable. And we were friends for about 7 years before we even started dating. And we went to the same university together, best of friends, and decided one day, one summer, let's actually maybe try to date.
Now, Keith, you know my journey. I was in the friend zone for those 7 years. So I've grown a knack for persistence. And it comes with strategy. So you have to, as they tell us in the financial service industry, stay close to the fire. But Bria was always a great friend. We had amazing conversations. And so I always wanted to date her, and I had to wait for the right time in life to do it. And as we started to date, we started to build things together. She introduced me to things that at the time that I didn't know about. I wasn't well cultured in traveling, different type of food experiences. So beginning to get these experiences with somebody, we grew and we evolved together. I would tell her about these visions that I had of what we could build coming from those kind of historic figures. Like if they did this, then this would have happened. And she would hear me out. And we finally decided I always had an entrepreneur path, and she was always on the corporate side. And so my entrepreneur path comes from equities trading, stock market investing. And as when we had the opportunity, once we got married, to actually begin to build a vision together, we just really sat down and got in the trenches. And any problems that came up, it was just like our friendship. We were talking them out. We were failing forward, failing fast.
I love that. So for the guys listening who are trapped in the friend zone, what advice do you have for them to get out of the friend zone?
To get out of the friend zone is all about and I think this is with any good relationship, effective communication. People have to know where you're at and where you want to be. And you're kind of just laying that out on the line, and you get creative with how you want to do it, whether it's a nice dinner, whether it's a vacation together, however you want to do that. I think it starts with that effective communication and letting the message that you're going to give that other party sink in, and from the actions, they'll know your intentions. So character's already been developed. Now we're just cementing the message and what we truly want and how we want to grow together. So it starts with effective communication and then a really good implementation plan.
You handle that out of left field question very well. I'll give you credit for that. So I'm curious, when we talk about generational wealth, I know people hear that term a lot, but how do you guys define that? And why is that so important for families, especially families and communities like ours where that's not the case?
Yeah.
Hmm. That's a really good question. For us, we have a kind of like a values system for kind of like our mantra, and that's family, faith, and legacy. And so when we think of, maybe the term generational wealth, people might think of just the money portion. But for us, it's like like what impact are we leaving on the family that we have? We have two little ones. We have all these cousins and nieces and nephews, all within this 20-mile radius. And it's like, how can we just make an impact together that's lasting, that's actually leaves a legacy, and that can actually align with the values of our family and what we have, as well as being grounded in our faith. And so it's kind of just being prosperous in all areas of life. And money is just a vehicle that can help us through that, but it's more of a holistic approach for sure.
I completely agree with what Bria is saying. There's a really good financial mentor that we watch a lot on YouTube named Doug Andrews, and he calls it authentic wealth. Authentic wealth is about establishing value principles like life principles on top of predictable, sustainable outcomes. So if we have the values like these rules, these 10 commandments, if we that we live by, if you will, in our family life, and these are the things that we value, now we're looking for a predictable system that allows us to accumulate financial wealth. And our values are always going to be upheld, but we need to make sure that we have a system in place that allows us to understand by this time we're here, by this time we're here, by this time we're here. And if there's any changes along that roadmap, we have the GPS of where we're at and we know where we're going so we can pivot. We don't need to be afraid. We just pivot so that we could get back on the right road. So a lot of it became about values and then putting a system in place. Once you have those, this is what you're operating your moral judgment on, and your moral judgment is tied to a financial system that allows you to help the communities, the families, or the different countries that you may aspire to help.
I'm curious, as you guys have started on this path of helping create generational wealth, what were some of the biggest challenges you have faced trying to bridge the racial wealth gap?
Oh,
Sure.
that's a
I'll start with like one thing. I already know what Che is gonna say. Um, one of the biggest challenges is the lack of education of what's actually out there and what's available. The way that we even got into the current type of services that we're in outside of Che's equity background was I was a part of the mass tech layoffs, and we had this huge amount of chunk of change, severance, 401k, and we're like, okay, we don't want to just throw this into the market. Like, we've learned that the market is just so variable, and while it's a part of their portfolio plan, it shouldn't be, where you put all your eggs in one basket. I am a very low risk tolerance person. Che is very opposite given what he does for, for by trade. And so we needed to find something that was kind of what that middle ground was. And so I think the fact that we actually went to search for what the different vehicles are that can kind of fit the middle ground between husband and wife family dynamics. So that was one challenge, was the lack of knowledge that folks have, and then also trying to find something that fits the dynamics of the family unit. So those are the two things that I think, from what I'm just kind of off top of, one of the challenges that we have faced in the beginning of our journey, and kind of working with multiple different clients as well that have generational, multi generations that are involved in the decision making process and things of that nature.
Right.
Yeah, I would definitely say the key has been financial literacy. So, like what money is and what you can do with it. And something after talking to group after group after group, and I mean like real sitting at your kitchen table kind of talks, I was like, oh, okay, you know what? It's a basketball analogy. Um, if we understand that money is the ball in the basketball game, but in order to win the game, you can't just dribble the ball. It's not an and one dribble competition. You have to put the ball in particular buckets, and that's what equals the score. Once we get them to understand that, it's about what buckets do we want to put the money in. And if you're just spending the ball, that's the equivalent to a turnover. Somebody has stolen it from you, or you gave it to the other team to put into their bucket. You need to be putting the ball in the right buckets so that you can accumulate and protect the right way. Once they get that, they're like, oh, okay, I need to shoot it in the right place. Yes, let's get that money going to the right places, and your money will then make money for you. And that's what the wealthy know. When you think of people like Robert Kiyosaki and they break down those four quadrants, you either want people making money for you or your money making money for you. This is how you ultimately produce financial freedom, truly. And as long as we know that, we got to get our money to the right buckets to allow one of those outcomes to begin to start and continue to flourish.
So because we don't give financial advice, but I am curious, what kind of buckets or should people be looking to put their money into? You talk about there's four. So what are the kind of the four buckets you're talking about?
So we call them five. We have what we call our five-star financial system, and we started on brackets to make sure that we're accommodating for people's income. So the first bucket is protection. Protection is just going to allow them to understand that if I pass away, what are my dependents? What are the bills that my dependents still would have needed me to cover, and how long? And so that's how we determine the death benefit that you'll need in that particular vehicle. And you also, if something were to happen to me, like maybe we're in different neighborhoods where there's underserved communities can often have violent acts that happen. Are we protected for critical, terminal, or chronic things that may happen that we didn't prepare for? So making sure we have living benefits with that protection policy. Then we move into turning people into a bank, making sure that they understand, hey, there are policies that if you put X amount of dollars into it month over month, year over year, you can take out loans from yourself tax free. We call this a tax advantage strategy. When you take out a loan from yourself and it's tax, because every loan is tax free, you simply pay yourself back. Now you have removed the bank and you've become your own bank. Then once we get them into that kind of bucket, we take them into the no risk retirement account. No risk retirement account will simply be, instead of your money going like this in the stock market, because what we have to show everybody is a graph of this is how money grows. It's either fixed like a CD or a savings account, it's variable like a 401k or stock market account, or it's indexed. Nobody has ever heard of index whenever we sit them down. Indexing simply means I can't lose my principal. So whatever I put in, it has that floor right there. And then because we have it attached to insurance vehicles, as interest accrues in that, it gains. And then after 12 months, it locks in for the next year. So if the market, while it's attached to the market's upsides, it can't experience any of the market's downside risk. So you're stair stepping the entire time. And when we show people that for their retirement, that's where you want to put like a healthy lump sum of money and just let that cook. The same exact way you would treat your 401k, you're going to treat that account. And once we get people into that and they see that their money can't lose money, they're going to be good in the next 10, 20 years. We like to get them focusing on their wills and their trust. And Bria actually came up with a really good way that if you weren't prepared financially to set up a trust, there are things that are offered in different states called transfer of death deed or transfer on death deeds that allow you to essentially create beneficiaries for your assets, and it is documented in that state or that county so that none of those assets go into probate. Probate becomes the big thing that we as Black people, people of color, or people in underserved communities, we just don't prepare for it. So we're always putting our assets and our legacy items in the trust of the government or the state where we want to control those things. Once we get that under wraps, the fifth and final thing is making sure that we call it paid legacy celebration. You can take care of all your expenses before we even get close to that date, well in advance at a cheaper cost, just by having what they call a final expense in a particular insurance vehicle. Now all those things are covered. Your kids aren't worried about it. They know the game plan because that game plan will be put in your will. As long as we have this five-step ecosystem, this is where we accumulate wealth. We can mix and match strategies with it. We get as creative as we want. And it's all about where we're moving our liquidity or where we're putting that ball and what bucket we want to put it in to create even better outcomes. Sorry, that was long-winded.
No, that was a good answer. No, it's really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, I agree.
Go ahead.
You. I was going to say he laid it all out, so I don't have anything to add to that.
Well, that's good. You guys do work well together. So, Shay, tell me something about your wearable tech background and how you work with that.
I am not a fashion designer by trade or anything like that. It honestly came from when you're in the stock market, specifically doing equities trading, or as we call it, options trading. You're looking for disruptive companies that can have exponential growth, and you're trying to time them at the right time. But the key word is disruption. So where could we go that has become kind of lackadaisical, but we could add something new to it that would disrupt that market in a different way where it has a different functionality to it. A large part of back in the day, and I know I'm gonna get in trouble for saying this name, was studying what Tesla was able to do. And in watching how Tesla took what was already a car, essentially, but they created more functionality to the car and potentially looking at autonomous vehicles and what AI looks like, I started to look at with my nephew, who kind of sparked the idea, what could it be if we use clothes as a identity tool? Because we wear clothes that somehow represent or embody the character that we have. Like this is why we selected to put those clothes on. But if the clothes could have functionality to them outside of just something that we wear, but if you could scan it, learn stories about people, and learn how to develop your own wealth, if the clothes could become a tool of, at the time, I was thinking to myself, economic liberation, what would that look like and how cool could that be? Then we just went on this long journey of, okay, well, how can we make the clothes something like that? And the QR code became a thing. We're like, yeah, it prints really well on this. Well, what kind of stories do we want to tell? Well, let's look at how Nike did it. Like Nike's just Nike right now, and they don't have to do anything extra, but Nike's really good at storytelling. So where they use greatness in sports, why don't we use legacy to inspire other people to live their legacies? And then we could use the wealth tools that we have to show them exactly how to do that. So it became a funnel system from legacy, from being inspired by somebody else's legacy, like a Malcolm or a Harriet Tubman, Ya Asantewa, people that you hadn't heard of, to being funneled down into, okay, now that they inspired you, how about we build yours out? And now we have involvement and action. So it's like edutainment, bleeding into actual implementation of how we're going to get better as a group of people. Um, and along the way, it was just what works and what doesn't work. What's a good logo, what's not a good logo, what stands out and what doesn't stand out. So now we're even coming out with scannable shoes. So when people are walking around in these two-tone shoes and they say, "Ooh, what are those?" You don't have to explain it anymore. And this is where that functionality comes in. They just say, "Oh, scan me." And we wanted to drop them right into a cultural driven story of who that shoe belongs to. Like, what if that's the story of Malcolm X? And they get this AI story narrated by me and Brea talking about the legend of Malcolm X. So just getting creative and disruptive became the ultimate goal, and figuring out how along the way, and trying to keep overhead down, but profits high.
Oh, I love that. That's really a unique idea.
Thank you.
So, Bria, I'm curious what you do. How do you help families customize their legacy plans?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing we do is just listen. Every family has a unique story and a unique set of challenges and dreams. And so we don't believe that when we hop on the phone or hop on Zoom or even on someone's living room doing a presentation, that it's just a cookie cutter plan. So we really start by mapping out what they actually value the most, and whether it's something that they want to leave behind for their children, or something that they want to protect, like Che mentioned, or creating freedom in their future. And so we use a tool that we call an asset map to give them a clear visual of their entire financial picture. And it's something that's, I feel like it's an empowering, but to really see everything kind of laid out in one place, just your finances and your picture on a page. And
Mhm.
sometimes for the first time, when we talk to these families, they've never seen it. And so what Che mentioned, kind of our 5-star system, is how we walk them through. That's what we call our legacy wealth blueprint. And so at the end of the day, the goal is simple. It's to really help them feel confident and clear, knowing that their money is working for them, and that they're building that legacy that's not just managing finances, but it's something that they can do for their whole entire family.
I love that. Could each of you share a story from the areas that you focus on and tell me how you've used that to impact a particular family or a community?
Sure. Che, did you want to start? I don't want to.
Can you repeat that question again?
So, from the different aspects, you guys both approach this very differently. Can you share a story from your area of expertise of how you've used your gifts, your talents, and your abilities to either impact a family or a community?
Family or community? Um, From my background, I would say from like the sports side and my father as a mentor, I've always had a really good knack for, I would say, teaching or talking, or as they would say, the gift of gab. Um, um, so I've always been able to speak really well and clear in the message. And because of that, I think I have a when I went to the University of we both went to the University of Washington, and I received my degree in history. And so I've always been this kind of history buff, and I always liked our African American history and all these legends that I'd never heard of, like Martin R. Delaney being one of the probably the first Black nationalists, and actually going back to Africa and creating a space for freed slaves to return home, if you will. You know, these stories of these legends that we had never heard of. So when I got into financial services or with options trading, it became about how can we do things on our own? Like, how can we get it without having to work for somebody else? Like, how can we maneuver this system, if you will? And that was like that Malcolm X in me, self-reliance. But we got to extract from here so we could put it over there. In applying that to what we do now, it's all about the stories that you can tell people. So when I tell them about my upbringing with my father and teaching, when I tell them about how people like Malcolm experienced hardships with his father being murdered his mother going into the insane asylum, and him trying to find his own way as this lost kid separated through the foster care system, and building these stories to say, look, we all start somewhere, but it's about where we end. And it's about how we put systems in place to make sure that that doesn't happen to the next generation. I became really good at storytelling, and ironically, like I like films a lot. So like the film industry is something that I always wanted to do, but on our own terms, like make our movies, have our own fan base, and create a message that just inspires people. But I've been able to take that storytelling aspect of my background and being able to speak well and let the message resonate with people and apply that to their financial journey and their journey to want a better outcome for their families. And now it's not so much this tool does this and it does this. And if you do this, it's not the 1, 2, 3, 4 sequential step that they taught us in school, as much as you're pulling on the heartstrings about what do you want and where are you at? If we just know where you're at and you know what you want, now we're just road mapping it to get you there. That's our job. We're going to tell you that story and give you those products that do that. It doesn't matter what the product is, it matters the outcome the product can produce.
I love that.
So as you can see, Che brings the passion. That's one of his strengths. The storytelling, for sure, for sure. He is definitely the one that when we go and have talks, he's the one that's starting us off because, like he mentioned, like his passion shows through the things that we talk about. And so the way that I feel like we complement each other and how we work together is I'm definitely the realist. And I bring the structure and the system to the process that he is to the vision that he is portraying and the vision of the families that we work with. And so during these times that when we have these initial conversations, it's really like, what is that dream? What is that vision? What is that goal? And then I'm like, okay, now that you laid it out for us and exactly what that looks like. Now my job is to see, okay, which structure is going to fit the best to fit that vision and what's the system that we're going to follow in order to get there. And so that's kind of how we're able to work together and bringing the strengths that we have. One example I would say that we've kind of focused a lot on in the beginning of last month is working with churches. My dad is a pastor. He's been a pastor since, I don't know.
Bishop.
Yeah, I don't know. He's been a pastor for years, longer than I've obviously been alive. He's 80. He's turning 80 this May. He's been a pastor since he was like 21. So whatever that looks like, 60 years. Anyway, the churches are a prime example of how we can bring generational wealth and lasting legacy into the church house. And one prime example was a church that we have worked with, and the pastor didn't have any legacy plan, or the church didn't necessarily know, when our pastor passes away or leaves, before time, what do we do? And a lot of times it's that they're either full-time work that they're putting into, as a part of the ministry, or maybe they have something part-time. Maybe they're working full-time and they haven't necessarily had a plan. And so we're working with the churches to actually build a plan for the key persons of influence in their church, whether that is the pastor, the head deacons, maybe some of the head ministers in the organization, to ensure that if something does happen, they're taken care of. But not only that, that wealth also goes back to the church. So if something were to take place, like a member that comes in and they need help for the benevolence fund, or if they need to build another, let's just say a detached unit onto their land, there are different ways for them to continue this wealth within the church that they can actually do what they do best and what they need to do. And that's serving the community, serving what's around them. And so one of the things that we're really focused on is really helping the churches be able to build that structure and what that looks like, and to get them set up. And so that's one of the things from the community standpoint that we've kind of made a focus on, for sure.
Oh, that's a wonderful, wonderful endeavor. It really is important. I've worked in a lot of churches for not long as your dad. I've only been doing this for like 31 years, so I got a long way to go, but for a while.
Yeah, and it was something I'm sure a lot of people in our industry uh go to churches to say and pitch per se, but we're seeing this as something much, much bigger. Some churches have created credit unions. Like, okay, if they don't have the capital to do that, what's another way they can get started to continue this development within their community? And it's showing that something that could be very viable and very easy to implement.
So you, you
And
go you go beyond the lock the door strategy.
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I was gonna chime in on that because I was saying if our church leaders know, because as we speak to the church leaders, and it's a beautiful thing because they know that they're shepherds, right?
Right.
And they're saying, before I can roll this out to anybody else, I have to at least experience this or have this on myself. I have to know what it's going to do for my people. And a lot of things that we see for the church is the church has all the ability to become its own banking system, just with what's already in place, depending on what type of church or denomination you are. You can put on events that can easily be funneled into your banking system that will sustain it for that year. And you could do it every quarter, you could do it biannually, you could do it annually. That one event could be building up your banking system so that when the community needs help, the church, who owns the policy, takes out a loan from themselves to help the community, puts on another event to replenish it, and keeps it going year over year over year, event after event, and they can scale, creating a scalable system that they're the bank. They're not leaving their money in what we call a fixed money account, which looks like the deadline if you were to pass away, the flat line.
Right.
You don't want your money there, and that's where we're used to our money being safe. No, that same group of people is taking your money and investing it in the variable space and making money off the money you're storing with them. Store your money in your own banking system, leverage it with your own planned out tools, and creatively build the future that you want for your environment. And the nice part about it is there's thousands of churches with their own communities to take care of. So there's a unique way they all, like Bria was saying, they all have different needs that they want to accomplish. There's no cookie cutter way to tell a church to do it, just like there's no cookie cutter way to tell a family to do it. It's built based off of that need, but the system is still the system. And as long as we know the rules of engagement, now we can play the game.
I love it. So what are the challenges and what are the benefits of working together as a couple?
Ooh, that's a nice one. You want to start, Boo?
Sure, sure. I would say one of the challenges for us is to just kind of being able to stay. I'm okay, so I'm very much so, like we mentioned, systematic structure, building it out. Trey's always bringing ideas, and I'm like, okay, let's execute this first one first before we move into that. Let's combine your ideas and let's put them on level of priority, and we can hit it from the ground based off of priority. So that definitely yielded to be a challenge in working together as a couple. I would say one of the benefits is also just that, because he has multiple visions that he can bring to the table, and I have the ability to systemize it and structure it. That pairs very well. We can't have two visionaries in a group, we'll never get anything done. We can't have two implementers in the group because we'll always just be trying to follow somebody else's system, and it'll never just be our own. And so what I would say is a challenge is also a strength that we're learning to work together and how we can actually balance it together. It's twofold for sure.
I completely agree. I was going to say left brain, right brain, if you will.
Yeah.
Uh, that logical process and that creative process. And Bria's, I can't enunciate it any better. I guess I'll try, but yeah, from a creative standpoint, seeing what could be done and kind of projecting out into the future, and then working together to say, okay, how does this get implemented though? And then on a creative side, you have to tailor those things back. You're like, okay, look, we can't do this until we do this. Like we have to know that success comes in steps. It's almost like the watering the seed analogy. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to constantly feed, and it takes time for these things to develop. But it's the um, repetition and consistency of whatever you're doing in that system that you have. So working together from a logical and creative space and coming together in that middle ground of saying, this is our system. Like if I literally showed you my board that's sitting right next to me, it literally says the system for leads and followers. What is the system that we're implementing to develop these plans? And that's what allows the logical and creative to really come together, because now we're looking at it from a system standpoint that's going to, over time, with consistency, achieve the outcomes that we said we want.
Yeah, I would also add one more challenge is because we work together full time, it's very hard to shut it off. And so I think we're still like trying to work through that. I think I'm more of the person that's like saying, hey, let's maybe talk about something else. Or if we take a date night, we're not just trying to do business strategy. And so that yields a little bit of a challenge in that in itself. But just making sure we take that time and not being just so inundated in the business, even though it's something that we enjoy doing. It shouldn't be like the bulk of our relationship. I would say another benefit or an opportunity is, our kids get to see us work together, and we try to take them along to some of the talks that we do, any of the workshops, even going to visit families, because we want them to see mom and dad working together. We want them to see mom and dad building this life for them and having the ability to see that firsthand. A lot of people just leave their kids at home. We bring them. Granted, we do have two sets of grands that help us along the way to, they come travel and everything. But the fact that they can see it and they see that they're also involved, and when they get older, we'll, hopefully bring them on board. And if they don't want to, at least they know how um to be able to have that family unit. I think that's one of the many blessings that not many families can say, but I definitely cherish it.
And I will say, from a challenge perspective, specifically with the communities that we want to help, it's been a challenge like in scaling, because everybody does not want to have an insurance conversation with you because of what the already projected thoughts of what that industry is. And so, one, getting creative in how we're saying, okay, let's approach this differently. We're not life insurance agents, we're wealth architects.
Right.
And what we do is create systems for financial freedom and generational wealth, finding creative ways to speak to the audience that we want so that they feel comfortable to bring what the problem is. A lot of times, similar to mental health in our communities, we don't want to talk about the financial problems that we're having. And our goal becomes, we have to get people familiar with us, or at least beginning to trust us, if you will, so that we can go into that personal space and help them how they want to be helped. So finding ways to do that has become the challenge of, how do we build a system around there's enough times that they've seen us, heard our message, and understand our passion and what we truly want to do, so that they're like, okay, I want this outcome in my life. So helping the community that we want to help, we've had we've had to learn how to speak to that community in their language so that we could both get to where we're at and where we want to be.
Love it. Now, here's my other favorite question, and it fits right in with what we've been talking about today. What do you want your legacy to be?
Go ahead, Brea.
No, I thought you were going to end with that one. Go ahead.
Okay, so mine is really big. If we're breaking down personal, I want to see us as people of color, and specifically the African American community, begin to create an ecosystem saying, okay, look, There are going to be times when our government is for us and against us, but how do we create an ecosystem where we are self-efficient within our own communities in our own space? And then once we create that ecosystem, I have this really big dream of I want to be able to funnel our banking systems collectively to begin to go back to Africa and build along the west coast of Africa like resorts. And I want us to attract our own people to coming and having vacations and everything on the same place that we were extracted from generations ago. So I want to find a way to Martin R. Delaney and kind of Malcolm X combined, return us home in a way that even when we go back to, say, that particular space, West Africa, and we are building out our own resorts and begin to build a city, we're creating jobs over there as well. So now we're building out another economy, if you will. And now we're taking the wealth that we understand to be in America and bringing it over here to Africa. And we're beginning to build out our own space, our own culture, our own laws, so that I don't want to see us constantly be in a protest environment that we don't control, but that we're asking for things to be done right. I want us to go and build the life and the space that we want and say, this is ours. We're coming back and we're going to help the people that are there. We're going to add value, and we're going to know the systems over here that allow us to build the culture and cities that we want over here. So I want to see us take the opportunity to build our own empires where we come from.
Love that.
Yeah, very, very big vision. And it's not that it won't happen. It's more the fact of when it does happen, that everyone is prepared to do that. I would say what we value most is leaving a legacy of impact and purpose. And so with all those things encompassing that Che mentioned, we want to bring as many families along the ride and to help as many families to be able to not just go from, we want them to go from strivers to thrivers. And so all the things that Che mentioned, all of that, and then making sure that people are really set up for success. And it makes a true impact for multi-generations to come.
Great. Where can people find both of you? And maybe if you want a legacy plan developed, where can they connect with you both?
Yes, they can find us on all platforms under A Legacy X, or if they want to connect with us specifically, they can find us on Davis X Rain. That's the rain as in hierarchy, not as in the weather.
Oh.
And also they can email directly at legacyteam@alegacyx.com.
Well, thank you both for coming on and providing such a great conversation. Blessings on the work you're doing. What you're doing is so important. So I'm so thankful that we had time to delve into that and kind of unpack a lot of what you do and the impact you're having on the community.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for listening to Becoming Bridge Builder. If you enjoyed this episode and want to help support the podcast, please subscribe and share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. To catch all the latest from me, you can follow me on Instagram @bkeithhaney and on Getter and Twitter @RevHeadpin. Thanks again and tune in next time.